Hey guys, and welcome to Colorado Railroad Productions, and today we're going to do a product review for an HO scale locomotive, and the locomotive is the Broadway Limited Paragon 2 Series Pennsylvania T-1 duplex locomotive. So on the box, the first impressions are it's a pretty nicely printed box, and it's got some good advertising. It tells all about the features on it and different things. And then so inside the box you got your foam to protect it, and then you've got the locomotive itself, and it's just wrapped in a kind of cling film paper, or cling film, and inside styrofoam. So then we'll pull it out. So here's the locomotive, and first impressions are very good. And the locomotive is extremely heavy, being the whole bottom is die cast and then just the top of the boiler is plastic. And on the tender, also pretty good weight to it. But the main impression I've got off both of these pieces are they're very nicely painted. No paint bleed, the printing is very crisp, all the details are very good, and it looks like it'll run in track very well. So inside the box, other than the locomotive, obviously, you get a little bag with some extra traction tires in case you break one, and a little wrench to take off the side rods if you want to take the traction tires off or add them. And then you get a little filler funnel so you can put the smoke in the locomotive, because it does have synchronized smoke as well as the Paragon 2 sounds. And then under the main box, you get your operator's manual to show how to run it on DC as well as DCC, and program all your fun stuff that comes with that. And other than that, you get your part schematics, so you know you can take apart your engine if it needs repaired, or if you want to do something to it. And then you also get your Broadway Limited warranty card. So you fill this out, you send it to Broadway Limited, and you get a 1-year warranty of any factory defaults or anything that breaks on it. And if you sign it up on the internet, you get a 2-year warranty, and I suggest getting the 2-year warranty. Alright, and now we're going to talk about some of the details and features of this beautiful locomotive. And so we'll start with some of the details going front to back. And so it's got a very nicely molded pilot with the as delivered factory pilot with 3 portholes on it, with the very distinct Pennsy T-1 shark nose on it. And it's got all separately applied grab irons along the whole locomotive. It's got all black and metal wheels and drivers, which are very good. And they will run on code 77, code 80, or code 100 rails. So whatever kind of rail you have, you can pretty much run on it. And then it's got a very intricately printed builder's plate, which if you take a magnifying glass, you can actually read it. And it tells that the locomotive was built in Altoona, Pennsylvania in 1942. And going back on the locomotive, you can start to look at the cylinders and all the drivers, which this locomotive has a very distinct valve gear on it, which has a very strange motion. It's nothing like a Walschaerts valve gear or a Stevens valve gear. And so again, all black and metal wheels, all die cast from here. And then going back further, it has all brass pop valves on the roof, and a brass whistle, and a brass bell, which is hidden under the locomotive. And then coming back, it's got a die-cast rear truck, which is also sprung and equalized. And then it's got a very nice other builder's plate on the back with the graphite-colored smoke box. And then you've got all your very, very nice printing on the locomotive of the road number, and then you start with that very distinctive Pennsylvania stripe. And also on the top of the locomotive, the cab roof vent actually opens. So that's kind of a neat feature that you don't see in locomotives in HO scale very much. So then moving on to the tender, it's got the 16-wheel tender, which is pretty much unique to Pennsylvania, and it's got a very, very crisp Pennsylvania logo on it. And then unlike most locomotives, it does have a real coal load, so that is actual coal in there. But looking on it, it's got all your marker lights, it's got your handrails, your water fill valve, and on the bottom, if you can see it, it's even got your water scoop so you can fill up on the move with a water trough. And so more about the unique tender on this locomotive. So if we pick it up and look at the back head, here's your connector to the locomotive. On the locomotive, it does have 3 different coupling options for depending on the curves you're going to be running on. And then your plug, so the DCC all plugs in together. And then you do have some molded in back detail on the tender, but for a locomotive of this caliber, it's not much to write home about. And so more on the bottom of the tender, you can see the distinct Pennsylvania 16-wheel trucks, and which these are very long and they're not very flexible. So the manufacturer does recommend a minimum radius of 22 inches. Same as the locomotive, because unlike a conventional articulated locomotive, the duplex was a fixed design, so it can't go around a real tight radius. And so then, as you move to the back of the locomotive, you can see all the air hoses and the steam cable for your passenger train. This was a passenger locomotive when it came out. And then unique to some of these specially made locomotives and tenders made in the railroad's own shops, it has its own builder's plate for the locomotive's tender. And then moving to the top of the tender, as you can see, you've got your real coal load, which looks very nice. Much better than most other stock HO locomotives, so you won't have to do any of your own coal or anything. And then you've got your air tanks, your filler hatch, and one of your other Pennsylvania unique features of the middle handrail right on the center of the tender. And so learning some more about the bottom of the locomotive, as you can see, it's got all the valve gear and the drivers and the side rods and all the things we've talked about earlier. But on the bottom, as you can see, it's also got separately applied brake hangers, which look very good on this locomotive. And then you can see the Broadway Limited manufacturer stamp. But another unique thing on this locomotive is that, unlike an articulated, it doesn't move at all. So this whole section is rigid. And so therefore, the center drivers are bald or flangeless, so it can go around a tighter corner. But this locomotive, as I've mentioned before, still needs a 22-inch minimum radius curve to go around. So now we're going to do a real slow pan of the locomotive so you can see all the great detail on it. And then after that, we'll do a short running video. And so then for the sounds, and for this locomotive, I am running the NCE Power Cab. And so we will do the factory startup sequence from Broadway Limited. And then we'll just go through the first couple sequences of sounds. So the headlight, you can hear the dynamo revving up. That's the steam or the water injectors. And then the bell. And then the whistle. And then after that, there's the couplet clank sound. Then we will just play the rest of the sounds so you can listen to it. Alright, to sum it up, the Pennsylvania T-1 duplex from Broadway Limited Imports is a very nice locomotive overall. The paint's great, it runs like a dream, and the separately applied details look very nice on the locomotive. Overall, I would personally, if you like Pennsylvania and you have the money, I would purchase this locomotive. But there is one drawback on the locomotive that I found. But for the caliber and the price of this locomotive, they could have painted the backhead of the locomotive and the tender. But that's really my only gripe about the locomotive. So if you like the video, press the like button and don't forget to comment and subscribe. Thank you.